The smell hit Jake so hard that he almost threw up. The metal tray in front of him held a gray lump that moved. Tiny bugs crawled over the food. A thin soup sat beside it, oily and dark, with something that looked like hair floating on top. This was dinner. This was what prisoners ate every day. Around him, men stared at their trays in fear. One whispered, "If you don't eat, you don't survive." Just then, Jake saw something in his food that made his heart stop. It was not a bug. It was worse. And before he could react, the cell door slammed shut behind him. 2 weeks earlier, Jake Miller had never imagined he would be inside a prison. He was a young reporter who worked for a small newspaper in Ohio. He loved finding the truth even when it was hidden. One morning, a letter arrived at his office with no return address. Inside was a single line: "If you want to know what prisoners really eat, come to Black Rock Prison." At the bottom was a time and date. Jake tried to ignore it, but he couldn't. Rumors about Black Rock Prison were everywhere. People said prisoners got sick all the time. Some said men went in healthy and came out broken. Others said some never came out at all. But no one had proof. Jake wanted that proof. So he went. Using a fake name and a made-up crime, Jake let himself get arrested as part of a secret plan with a trusted lawyer friend. The goal was simple: get inside, observe, and expose the truth. But the moment the heavy gates closed behind him, he knew this was no normal place. The guards were silent and cold. The halls were dark. The air smelled old and damp. Prisoners walked with their heads down, like they were afraid to look around. When Jake asked one man how long he had been there, the man only whispered, "Too long," and hurried away. The first day passed slowly. Jake stayed alert, watching everything. At night, he heard coughing, crying, and sometimes shouting. No one slept well. In the morning, breakfast was a dry piece of bread and a cup of brown water they called tea. His stomach growled, but he forced himself to eat. By dinner time, Jake was weak and tired. That was when the trays arrived. The smell alone made his eyes burn. Men around him stared, frozen. Some prayed. Others laughed in a broken way. When Jake looked down, he saw the moving bugs, the dirty soup, and then something sharp and white sticking out of the gray lump. He leaned closer. It looked like a piece of bone. Before he could think, a man next to him grabbed his arm and whispered, "Don't touch it. Don't eat it. Just wait." "Wait for what?" Jake whispered back. The lights suddenly flickered. A loud alarm began to scream. Guards rushed down the hall, shouting orders. Prisoners stood up, confused and scared. Then from the far end of the room, someone screamed in pure terror. And Jake realized that whatever was in their food was only the beginning of the nightmare. The scream cut through the room like a knife. Everyone froze. Guards ran toward the sound, their boots pounding on the floor. Jake stood still, his heart beating fast. A man at the far table had fallen backward, his tray on the ground. The gray food had spilled everywhere. He pointed at it, shaking, and cried, "There's a finger in it. There's a human finger." The room exploded with noise. Some prisoners yelled. Others backed away in fear. A few covered their mouths, trying not to throw up. Guards pushed through the crowd, shouting for silence. One of them kicked the spilled food under the table and dragged the man away. Another guard stared at the rest of them and said, "Sit down. Or lose your dinner." No one moved. Jake's stomach turned. A finger. A bone. Bugs. This was not just bad food. This was something dark and terrible. He slowly sat back down, pretending to obey, but he did not touch his tray. He looked around and saw fear in every face. Later that night, when the lights were off, a soft voice whispered from the cell next to his. "You're new. I can tell." Jake leaned close to the bars. "My name is Jake," he whispered back. "What's going on here?" "My name is Marcus," the voice said. "And you don't want to know. But now that you're here, you will." Marcus told Jake that the prison saved money by giving prisoners spoiled food. But that was only part of it. Sometimes food shipments never arrived. Instead of stopping meals, the kitchen used whatever they could find. Garbage. Rats. Old meat. And when someone died inside the prison, their body sometimes vanished before anyone outside could ask questions. "You mean?" Jake whispered. "Yes," Marcus said. "They grind it up, mix it in, and feed it back to us." Jake felt dizzy. "That's not possible." "It is here," Marcus said. "Black Rock is hidden. No cameras in the kitchen. No checks. No care. They think no one will ever find out." Jake knew he had to prove it. The next day he volunteered for kitchen duty. Most prisoners avoided it, but Jake forced himself to go. The kitchen was hot and dirty. The smell was worse than the dining hall. Flies buzzed everywhere. Big metal machines hummed loudly. While working, Jake noticed a locked door in the back. 2 guards stood near it at all times. When one of them stepped away, Jake saw something on the floor by the door. A small trail of dark red liquid. Blood. That night, Marcus whispered, "You saw it, didn't you?" "Yes," Jake said. "What's behind that door?" Marcus hesitated. "That's where they take the bodies. And sometimes the living." "The living?" Jake repeated. Marcus nodded. "Men who ask too many questions. Men who refuse to eat. Men who fight back." Jake felt a cold chill run through him. He realized that by being curious, he had already put himself in danger. The next evening, just as dinner trays were being passed out again, a guard stopped in front of Jake's cell. He opened the door and said, "Miller, come with me." Jake stood up slowly. His heart pounded. Other prisoners watched in silence as the guard led him down the dark hallway, past the locked kitchen door, and deeper into the prison. Then the guard opened another door, pushed Jake inside, and locked it behind him. Jake found himself standing in a cold, bright room filled with metal tables, sharp tools, and large grinding machines. And on one of the tables lay a body. Jake's breath stopped. The body on the metal table did not move. The skin was pale. The eyes were half open, staring at nothing. A thin red line ran across the neck. The smell of blood and metal filled the room. Machines hummed softly, waiting. A guard stepped in behind him and locked the door. "Welcome to the truth," the guard said in a cold voice. Jake wanted to run, but his legs felt heavy. "Why are you showing me this?" he asked, trying to stay calm. The guard gave a slow, dark smile. "Because now you belong to it." 2 more guards entered. One picked up a clipboard. "This one refused to eat," he said, pointing at the body. "Said he would report us if he ever got out." "And now?" Jake whispered. "Now he feeds the rest," the guard replied. Jake's stomach twisted. He watched in horror as they lifted the body and pushed it into a large metal machine. The loud grinding sound filled the room. Jake covered his ears, but the noise and fear rushed through his whole body. Tears burned in his eyes, but he forced himself to stay strong. He had to survive. He had to escape. And he had to expose this place. After what felt like hours, the guards turned off the machine. One looked at Jake. "If you tell anyone, you end up the same way." Jake nodded slowly. They shoved him back to his cell. That night he did not sleep. Every sound made him jump. His mind replayed the horrible scene again and again. The next morning, Marcus whispered, "You saw it, didn't you?" Jake nodded. "We have to stop them." Marcus shook his head. "People have tried. They disappear." Jake clenched his fists. "Then we need proof. Real proof." Over the next few days, Jake worked quietly in the kitchen. He watched guard movements. He memorized schedules. He noticed that every night, one delivery truck left the prison with sealed metal boxes. No one checked them. "One of those boxes could hold evidence," Jake whispered to Marcus one night. Marcus thought for a moment. "There's a camera control room near the north wing. If we get footage from inside the kitchen, we can expose everything." It was dangerous, but they had no choice. Late one night, during a power check, Marcus caused a small fight in the hallway to distract the guards. Jake slipped away, his heart pounding. He crept toward the control room, staying in the shadows. He reached the door and quietly opened it. Inside were rows of screens showing different parts of the prison. His hands shook as he searched. Then he found it, the kitchen feed. What he saw made his blood run cold. The screens showed guards dragging bodies. Some were lifeless. Others were moving, weak and struggling. Jake hit the record button, saving everything. Suddenly, a loud alarm blared. Red lights flashed. "Intruder alert," a voice boomed. Jake spun around. The door slammed shut. Heavy footsteps rushed toward him. He grabbed the recording device and hid it inside his shirt just as the door burst open. 3 guards stormed in, their faces filled with rage. "You shouldn't be here," one growled. They grabbed Jake, dragged him down the hallway, and threw him into a dark, cold cell far from the others. The heavy door slammed shut. Jake heard the lock click. And in the darkness, a deep voice whispered from the corner, "No one leaves this cell alive." The darkness felt thick, like it was alive. Jake could barely see his own hands. The air was cold and damp, and the smell of mold filled his nose. His heart beat so loud he thought the guards might hear it outside. "Who's there?" Jake whispered. A shadow moved in the corner. Slowly, a thin man stepped forward. His face was tired, his eyes hollow. "Name's Daniel," he said softly. "They throw people in here to disappear." Jake swallowed hard. "I can't disappear. I have proof. I recorded everything." Daniel's eyes widened. Then you're already dead unless we move fast. Hours passed. No food. No water. Just silence. Then in the early morning the door opened. 2 guards entered, dragging Marcus inside. His face was bruised, his lip bleeding. "Marcus," Jake whispered. Marcus struggled to sit up. "They know," he said weakly. "They're moving the machines tonight. They're clearing the kitchen. They're trying to erase the evidence," Jake said. "Yes," Marcus replied. "And they plan to erase us too." Suddenly the prison lights flickered. A loud siren began to wail. Over the speakers a voice shouted, "Security breach. All units respond." Daniel smiled. "That's our chance." "How?" Jake asked. "I've been planning an escape for 2 years," Daniel said. "Tonight it finally happens." Using a loose metal bar hidden under the floor, Daniel pried open a small vent. Cold air rushed in. One by one they crawled through the narrow tunnel. Jake's heart raced as voices echoed nearby. They dropped into a storage room near the loading dock. Outside, a delivery truck waited, engine running. Guards were distracted by alarms across the prison. "This is it," Marcus whispered. They ran. Jake's legs burned as they sprinted toward the truck. A guard spotted them and shouted. A loud bang echoed. Jake felt a sharp pain graze his arm, but he kept running. They jumped into the back of the truck just as it began to move. The doors slammed shut. Darkness returned, but this time, it was filled with hope. Hours later the truck stopped. When the doors opened they were miles away from Black Rock Prison. Within days, Jake gave the footage to federal investigators. The videos spread across the country. People watched in shock as the truth about Black Rock Prison was revealed. Guards were arrested. The prison was shut down. Families finally learned what had happened to their loved ones. Jake's story made national news. But the images never left his mind. Months later, Jake stood in his small apartment, staring at the screen as reports played. New prisons. New secrets. New rumors. He whispered, "How many more places like this exist?" His phone buzzed. One new message. Unknown sender. Black Rock was not the only one. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Because now he knew the truth. And once you know what prisoners really eat every day, you can never forget it. Jake stared at the message on his phone. Black Rock was not the only one. The words felt heavy like a warning. His heart beat fast. He thought the nightmare was over, but it was only the beginning. The next day he met with federal agents. They showed him reports from other prisons across the country. Missing prisoners. Broken cameras. Sick inmates. Strange food deliveries. The signs were everywhere, but no one had connected them before. "We believe there are at least 3 more prisons like Black Rock," one agent said quietly. Jake felt cold. "Then people are still eating this food?" The agent nodded. "Yes. And we need your help to stop it." Jake was afraid, but he also felt strong. He had survived. He had proof. And he had a voice. He agreed to work with them. Over the next few months, Jake traveled in secret, helping investigators expose the hidden truth. Each prison was different, but the pattern was the same. Spoiled food, unsafe kitchens, missing inmates, and terrible secrets hidden behind locked doors. One night, during a raid on a hidden kitchen, Jake watched guards get arrested as the machines were shut down forever. Prisoners cried with relief. Some hugged each other. Others just sat on the floor, shaking. Jake finally understood how deep the problem went. It was not just about bad food. It was about people being treated as if they did not matter. News spread fast. The country was shocked. New laws were passed. Prisons were inspected more carefully. Kitchens were rebuilt. Guards were trained again. Cameras were installed everywhere. Families finally got answers. Marcus was released early for his bravery. Daniel entered a witness protection program. They stayed in touch, reminding each other that they survived something terrible and came out stronger. 1 year later, Jake stood in front of a classroom filled with young students. He told them his story in simple words, hoping they would understand the importance of truth and courage. "Never ignore signs of injustice," Jake said. "And never stop